Hey there, this is Dennis Anyone with Dennis Hensley. It's a podcast about making things up and making things happen. I love talking to creative people who put stuff out there. It's not always easy to do that, and I like to support them. I think art and creativity make the tough times bearable. In times like these, you go to a movie, it helps you escape. You read a book, you listen to a song, you listen to a podcast. I like to support the people that do that because I know how much benefit I get in my own life from the things that people put out. And today my guest is a podcaster. His name is Rob Loveless, and his podcast is called A Jaded Gay, but he's anything but jaded. It's kind of a tongue-in-cheek title. He dives into issues around gay psychology, pop culture. He did an episode on Cher and Kylie, and he's of a different generation than me, but he inspires me. He gives me hope for the future. And he's one of the people I'm nominated with for the Podcast Awards. There's a Podcast Awards coming up next week, I believe. I'm nominated in the Derek and Romaine LGBTQ category. I guess Derek and Romaine won it so many times that they just named the category after them, and they're not in it anymore. So Rob is one of the other people listed. When I got the nomination, I thought maybe we can all come together and do something. I was going to do a You Don't Know My Life episode of this podcast. So I reached out to everybody, and I didn't hear back from some of them, and some people couldn't do anything, but Rob was always enthusiastic. So I was like, let's just do this interview, and I'm glad we did. So before I get to the interview with Rob, though, I want to let you know that this podcast is pretty much brought to you by me. I do have some ads sometimes, but mostly it's me, and I do it because I love it. But if you want to support the podcast, there are some things you can do. You can go to my website, DennisAnyone.net, and leave a tip in my virtual tip jar like Greg G did recently. I really appreciate it. There's a thing there called Buy Me a Coffee, so you can buy me a coffee. The other thing you could do is become a subscriber to my podcast sequel kind of spin-off that I do on Patreon and Substack called Dennis Hensley's Happy and Gay. It's a all-good vibe spin-off of this podcast, but it ends every episode with a little nugget about happiness. I'm very interested in the topic, what makes people happy, what we can do to be happier, even when things don't go our way. And I hope you enjoy it. I love doing this extra podcast. And you can learn about that at Patreon or Substack. Just search Dennis Hensley's Happy and Gay. Or you can become a subscriber to DNR Studios. I'm part of a group of shows under the Derek and Romaine podcast banner. And for a monthly fee, you get my show early and you get all these other great podcasts. So check that out at DNR Studios. All right, enough of the plugs. Here now is my interview with Rob Loveless. Joining me now from Philadelphia, it's Rob Loveless, the host of A Jaded Gay podcast. Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Dennis. I'm so excited to be here today.
So Rob and I are both nominated for Best LGBTQ Podcast Host in the Podcast Awards. And I like to think of this. Do you remember that year on the Emmys when Amy Poehler brought up all the other hosts, all the nominees?
Yeah.
Like this is what that is. The awards, I guess, are announced later this week. And so this is our just hanging out like sisterhood moment before things get really brutal and cutthroat. No. Congratulations on your nomination. Had you been nominated before? This is my first time. I didn't know much about this before.
Thanks, and congratulations to you, too.
Thanks.
This is my second time. Last year was the first year I was nominated for it, and I do know a few of the other podcasts in there. Gayish podcasts I listened to for a long time, and I know they've been nominated several times for, the past 5 or so years at least.
Right on. All right. Well, this is a new thing for me. We're supposed to record our speeches in advance in case we win. Have you done yours yet?
I did, yeah.
I did mine with my dog on my lap, and I thought it would be charming and like, oh, look how cute, the dog. He looked so bored with the whole experience that I went in and added like a caption about how bored he was to just acknowledge the elephant in the room, which is my dog could care less about my podcasting. But no, it's fun. It's cool to get a bit of acknowledgement and to be reminded that like, oh, this goes out and people listen and it's a thing. What inspired you to start your podcast in the beginning?
Yeah, so it's a live a long answer.
I love it.
Be a little long-winded.
Go for it.
So I got into podcasts in 2018, listened to just kind of a few like comedy ones, branched out from there. And I always thought it'd be fun to do a podcast, but I never wanted to do it alone because I was a little nervous too. So my friends and I would always joke about like making a podcast. We threw some ideas around, but nothing serious. And then in 2021, I was at a job that I absolutely hated. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to start a podcast now because like, if this gets out and my company finds out about it and I lose my job because of it, like I wouldn't be sad because this isn't my dream job. This isn't a good company dynamic. And during the pandemic, I had listened to a few different gay podcasts, and I really liked them. The one thing I struggled with was there were either ones that were more fun and kind of more talk showy. And then there were other ones that were more serious about topics, which I appreciated, but it was very clinical, almost like talking to a psychiatrist. And I wanted something kind of in the middle where it's like, we're talking about the heavy stuff, but it's like talking to your best friend about it.
Right.
So that's kind of how I formed my podcast. And it was really just me exploring topics I was interested in that I didn't know much about, like why are mustaches considered gay, and what does, dating in gay culture and psychology have to do with this? And, why do we have gay plant daddies? Are gays really more into houseplants than millennials? So just kind of these different topics I was interested in, ranging from history to politics to even just like dating dynamics. And it's really kind of just expanded from there.
I love it. Well, the title is A Jaded Gay, but it's actually very empowering, and you kind of do a tongue-in-cheek little exploration of jadedness. Like, how are you feeling today? Are you feeling jaded? And it's a fun way in. But you do something else on your podcast with the tarot cards that I find really interesting. So do you do that in every episode, at least the ones that I've heard? Is that right?
I do, yeah. And that was something else right before I started the podcast that earlier that fall. I had gotten interested in tarot. My friend introduced me to it.
Right.
So I was like, I've been kind of trying to learn like tarot cards. So I want to incorporate this. So I do pull a card every episode at the top. And I kind of just go over what the card means traditionally.
Okay.
And then we go through the episode. And at the end, I connect the card back to the episode topic. So trying to bring it home a little bit. And the thing I like about tarot is a lot of people think it's more so fortune telling. But
right.
For me, I really view it more affirmation based than fortune telling. So
right.
It kind of is just helping frame where we're at. And like you said, the podcast is called A Jaded Gay, which is meant to be tongue in cheek. So I do want it to kind of be empowerment. Although I will admit lately I've been more jaded than non-jaded these days. But the whole purpose is trying to move past being jaded and finding the joy, the queer joy in life, whether it's through a lighter topic like talking about Cher's entire iconic career, or talking about something heavier, like some of the, the Trump administration from 2017 to 2021 and some of the dynamics now. And everything tries to end with a call to action. So it's not just like, let's trauma dump and then here's it all. We don't know what to do with it. It's like, here's a petition you can sign, or here's a practice you can do, or here's maybe go talk to a therapist or something, but trying to take the action to move beyond jadedness. Right.
It has a sort of positive slant to it for sure. And it's not bitchy. It's funny, but it's not bitchy. It's a fine line. Do you have your cards with you now? Could we do one for this interview?
I do. Yeah. I can pull one real quick.
Let's do one. I love it. And you say tarot or tarot?
Tarot.
Tarot. Okay. Awesome. I have a listener that designs really cool custom tarot cards. I should connect you. Oh, nice. Like he does different ones through all kinds of different themes and like different. It's really cool. He sent me some samples. We're going to do a Christmas episode, I think, like a gift guide episode. So I'll try to connect you guys. But yeah, it's interesting. So you just got into it relatively recently, yeah?
Yeah, so I launched the podcast in April 2022, and December 2021 is when I was really kind of thinking through launching it, getting it together and all of that. And just a few months prior was the first time I picked up a tarot deck. So I'm like, yeah, I'll just find a way to combine it in there.
But it's super fun. It's like, the podcasts that we like to listen to, they have these recurring things and we come to expect them. I like to hear the shuffling. It's like, he's shuffling the cards. It's like these little auditory things that we hook into, I think, and they're fun to have. So, all right, let's do it. I'm excited.
Okay.
What if it comes up like the worst card you can get?
We'll see. Well, I was always told there's no bad cards.
There's no bad cards.
So
okay.
I try to think of it that way.
All right. I'm on that same page. All right. There are no bad cards. Okay. Here we go. It was cracking me up so much if you turned the card over and just made this face like this oh shit, like this oh shit.
Right.
Okay. Here we go. Let's do it. Wait, is that the shuffling?
Yeah.
I didn't hear it, but it was happening. Okay, I could see it, but it wasn't. Okay, good. All right.
So what you do is you shuffle the cards. Everybody has a different method. From when I was learning how to do it, I read that you should knock on the deck 3 times to like clear the energy, and then you shuffle it 3 times, and then you break the deck, and then you draw from the smaller pile.
Yeah.
So doing that, we pulled the 7 of Swords in reverse. And basically what the reverse means is every card has its own meaning. And when you draw the card in reverse, the energy for that card is reversed. So sometimes it's an opposite meaning, or sometimes it's just a different meaning.
Okay.
Swords is a minor arcana card. So the tarot is broken into two components. There's the major arcana. Typically, if you watch a movie, you're going to see those cards pulled because they're more dramatic.
Right.
So you have things like the Fool, the Hanged Man, the Devil, things like that. Right. The major arcana cards are more major things happening in your life. So it's like a major chapter or something, like a big lesson to learn. And then minor arcana, there's 4 suits similar to a traditional deck. And these are more kind of like day-to-day things that you should incorporate. And each suit correlates to a different element with different meanings.
Okay.
So swords is tied to the element of air.
Okay.
And also each card has a different energy, masculine versus feminine, but it's not in the traditional sense of you would think like, oh, a king is a masculine card, a queen is feminine. It's not like that. Masculine energy just means more action oriented, and feminine energy means more meditative and reflective.
Okay.
Interestingly though, the tarot is pretty queer because a lot of the cards have a blend of it. So for example, you might have a king card, which is traditionally a masculine card, but in a feminine suit. So you kind of get both the masculine and the feminine there.
Interesting.
Swords, however, is, like I said, a masculine energy. It's more action oriented. It's tied to the suit of air. Tied to the element of air. And swords has a lot to do with kind of like our structures, principles. You could think of like the way we communicate, both verbal and nonverbal. So you can think of the pen is mightier than the sword and the sword of truth.
Okay.
Swords is actually kind of an intimidating one, I think. Some people don't like the suit of cups because that's more about emotions, but I like that one.
Okay.
But yeah, swords can be a little intense. And the number 7 in numerology is tied to inspired action and magic and transformation.
Okay.
So you take all these things kind of separately, the action orientation of the card itself, the meaning of the number 7, and then when you draw this card upright, typically the key meaning is deception and strategy, but when you draw it in reverse, the card meaning flips. And in this case, it's a little bit darker one. The key themes are about being disorganized or paranoid. So this might be signaling when we draw this that there's a plan or strategy that's not working in our favor, and it needs to be approached from a different perspective. So it shouldn't be something, while this might sound like dark, like you're disorganized, it shouldn't be like a reprimanding or like, oh, I'm in trouble. It's really just challenging us to think of a different way. And with swords being more action oriented, it's really taking the action, but taking the strategic action, that inspired action and magic. So using our strengths to take intentional action to move to a place that's better, where we might be better implementing a plan.
Yeah.
So we don't necessarily, if we're working towards something and it's not working out, it doesn't mean entirely we need to give up our idea or give up our dreams. We may just need to pursue that a different way.
Interesting. What that makes me think about in terms of podcasting is like, there's so many different ways you can do this and position it. I look at your Instagram and it's very aesthetically pleasing and disciplined. It's very related to your show. Mine's kind of a cluster of different things that I'm doing. And like going about the business of doing this, it's like, do I do video? What about this? Or should I have like all of those questions, right? And it changes. Last year it might have been this. This year it might be this. How have you found podcasting generally? What has it brought to your life?
I think it's a few things. It's given me an opportunity to be creative in a way that I haven't before.
Right.
I am a creative writer, so I like to write novels on the side, but this is something different. Obviously, I'm putting together episode scripts, so I'm trying to tell a story, but in a way of I'm researching things, and then I'm trying to not just write it down to tell a story, but speak. So how am I, enunciating on certain words, or how am I telling this? What tone am I inflecting? And then, the tarot card I pull live during that. So how do I tie this back in? And how can I inspire others towards the end of like, this is a heavy topic, but like, it's okay. We can move past it through XYZ. So that's one thing I've learned through the actual like storytelling of podcasting. But for myself, and as it kind of relates to the tarot, I am somebody who I think can be a little rigid in the sense of like, I like to come up with a process. So like A plus B equals C. So like podcasting, my scripts are going to be formula. It's like, you do this, boom, there's your podcast.
Right.
But as you talked about, like with the social media, like, you've debated like, should I do video? Should I do this? It's really challenged me to be not as rigid and to if I'm not getting as much engagement with a post or an episode, instead of feeling defeated and keep trying to do the same formula every time, maybe I look at it from a different way. So something newer that I've done was when I started, I was posting like Monday through Friday every day, which it was good. It was lots of little like, statistics and snippets, but it was a lot for myself to do. And it also was kind of overkill, I feel. So over time, I pulled back the amount I post. So it's really just around kind of episode day around that time. I've also changed the content I do a little bit. I've changed the structure of the show where this year it's been much more guest focused versus me doing solo episodes. And then I also really took, my past episodes and put together formalized transcripts for them and then turn the transcripts into into blog posts, which I've been promoting too. So really kind of finding the information I'm creating and then finding new ways that people can engage with it. Because when I started this, I thought everyone listened to podcasts, but even a lot of my friends are like, oh, I listened to the first episode, but I'm not really a podcast person. So now I'm like, well, here's a blog post. There's no excuse for you not to engage with this. But so really just, through podcasting, it's just kind of challenged me to think things through different ways. And I've been trying to turn it more into like a business format, and repurpose the content so that everybody can reach it, whether they prefer reading or listening to things. And I've also connected with a lot of great people in the podcasting community. I made some great friends and had them on my podcast and vice versa. And just challenged me to be creative and find ways so the episodes don't feel stale. It's important to talk about like mental health and well-being, but there's only so many podcasts you could do for that before you think like, wow, well, I'm gay, so I'm just going to be alone and depressed forever. It's like, Let's find some fun things like, oh, it's Halloween. Let's talk about Demon Twinks. Let's talk about the history of queer
What exactly
horror.
is a Demon Twink, by the way?
So
listeners, if you can't tell, we're of different generations. And occasionally there's things on Rob's podcast where I'm like, I don't know what that is, but I think I know what it is. So wait, break down Demon Twink, and then I have another question for you.
So I feel Demon Twink is a very niche archetype within gay culture. So I did an episode, I think back in May, about twink death in general, because that was another concept people were talking about. And in it, we kind of categorized what typically gay culture has defined a twink to be, which is traditionally, thin, slender, usually hairless, young, attractive gay man. Yes. There's been different definitions because sometimes if you have body hair, you can be a twink. Some people consider you to have to be hairless. So for some people, it's an age thing. For some people, it's an aesthetic body type thing. So everybody kind of has their own definitions, but loosely, it's typically that. A demon twink is basically a chaotic version of that, which the term came about in 2021 by DJ Ty Sunderland. Okay. Who it was July,
I love that you have the backstory on Demon Twink, the origin of Demon Twink. It's so good.
So yeah, I always try to do a little research.
No, you do your homework. I'm going to get to that. Yeah. I'm impressed. You're like prepared.
I'm very curious. So a lot of things I wonder, where did this come from? Why is this gay, or why is this a gay stereotype? So I'd like to do the research, but it was July 2021. COVID restrictions had been easing up. People were kind of losing their minds. They wanted to get back out there. And there was a Britney Spears themed party boat off of New York City that day. And during it, there was one twink who I think was very drunk and potentially high, and was kind of a menace, tearing it up on the dance floor, which normally that's not a bad thing, except then they were getting a little rowdy. They were throwing a drink at the DJ equipment. They were trying to climb up on things that they weren't supposed to. They snuck into the VIP section and then got their ass eaten publicly in front of everyone.
Wow.
And DJ Ty Sunderland went on record on Twitter, talking about these things. He's like, some demon twink. And it kind of just spiraled from there. It became a viral meme thing. Yeah. Troye Sivan jumped on board and he's like, so what if I decide to get my ass eaten publicly? I am the demon twink type of thing. Right. And it just kind of spiraled where people use it as kind of a tongue-in-cheek term for things like that.
It's funny.
And then more recently this year, there's been a term called Chaotic Twink that was coined by, I want to say GQ, but I think I might be misquoting the publication. But basically, there were some recent films where there were people like Timothée Chalamet and some other actors who typically are straight but kind of portray that twink aesthetic. But they were in movie roles that there was just absolute chaos. So they were talking a little bit more about chaotic twinks in Hollywood now.
Right on. Another thing that you mentioned in a couple of your episodes is a backward snapback. I think, to me, what I'm thinking that is a baseball cap turned backwards. Am I right?
Yes. Usually the brim is flat. A baseball cap normally kind of folded so it's rounded, but a snapback is typically kind of just flat brim.
flat brim and to the back, and that's a snapback. Yep. And that was a thing that who was into? Gay people, or was it a straight thing?
Me specifically.
You were super into. Yeah, I like it. All right.
If there were guys who had tattoos, snapbacks, and bad attitudes, usually I was ready to get married by the second date.
You were drawn to them. You talk very openly about your dating life and different parts of your life. I think it's very vulnerable, but also I think it connects. Like, when you first started out, did you ask yourself, how open am I going to be? For example, I just listened to an episode where you talked about your coming out story, and you talked about struggling with anorexia when you were younger and things like that. When you were doing this, how did you decide how open to be about that? Or did you just do what came naturally?
Some of it came naturally. I think when I started the podcast too, I was going for a little bit more like cheeky tone, where I would curse a little bit more, and I'd talk fast like a Gilmore Girl, and I would, kind of try to throw out like all these puns. But sometimes felt a little inauthentic, so I'd listen back and be like, I don't think that's really how I am. Like, I mean, I could be a little snarky now and then. But I felt like it was more like a stage presence I was creating, which I didn't like. So I think that also combined with trying to be open a little bit. So I would try to put on that persona a little bit more around being open as kind of like a buffer. But I've kind of found my tone afterwards. Yeah. But I do think from the get-go, I'd want it to be open, because one thing I realized, and some of it certainly is unique, like, not everybody has an eating disorder in the gay community, but when I was living in Pittsburgh, when I started the podcast, there really was a lot of overlap between the gay community and the gay party scene. So it could be kind of uncomfortable. Dating felt a little incestuous sometimes, because like everyone knew each other. But I did make a few really good friends in the gay community through there who we were very much aligned in like what we wanted out of life. Like, we weren't really partiers or anything like that. And through talking to them, I realized that a lot of the things that I had felt and experienced through dating weren't really unique to me, but it's just things that people don't talk about so much in gay culture, because it's not as sexy as some of the other things going on there.
Right.
So I realized, if in my own local community, there's other people who feel the same way as I do, then odds are there's probably a lot of people out there who also do, but feel they may not have a space for that, whether it's, going to their gay bar, or just their own gay friends. Maybe they don't feel like others can relate to that, so they don't talk about it. So I did feel it was important to be open, because, I mean, for me, it took a long time. I came out at 21, and even after that, I was a little, shy about like saying the words I'm gay. Like, I knew I was gay, but for anybody outside of the gay world, like, it felt weird having my sexuality being acknowledged by family or coworkers, or even my straight friends I knew forever that just were not gay. So for me, coming into this podcast, having A Jaded Gay attached to my name and then talking about sexuality was kind of forcing me to be open and vulnerable from the get-go. So other things, while it might have been a little uncomfortable, kind of just fell naturally with being open as part of it.
I find that when I listen to other people's podcasts, the more honest they are, the more emotional they are, the more I connect. Like, I often cry on my podcast. It's a crazy time in the world. And at first I was like, I have to cut this out. I have to shorten it. You can hear, I can't talk for like 5 seconds go by. I got to cut that. And then I just was like, no, I'm just going to leave it in. And because I'm inspired by other people when they're real, I lean in. Like, it doesn't turn me off necessarily. So I've just left it. Do you ever find yourself getting emotional when you're doing it? Because a lot of your stuff is sometimes you plan things out pretty well. Unless you're doing an interview, it's more spontaneous, I think. But you write what you're going to say in advance.
Yeah. So I don't think I get emotional actually doing the podcast, like the recording of it. I will say, and this isn't a great thing, but I feel like the past few years I've really gotten myself very busy with things outside the podcast, like grad school and work, that I don't always have time to process my own emotions. So I think part of that is why I don't get emotional talking about certain things on the podcast. But part of it, like you said, I do write the scripts out ahead of time. So I think when I do get emotional, it's as I'm writing those, because that's when I feel the emotion, like you mentioned, the anorexia piece, like writing that felt weird when I was writing those things out, because I was kind of reliving that. So as I wrote that, I'm thinking like, wow, I feel this again. I remember that insecurity or the sadness around that, and, kind of had to take a deep breath after I finished the script. But that's kind of when I process the emotion, because then when I get to the actual like recording of it, I'm like, oh, I just talked about this the other day in terms of writing out the script. So like, I'm not reliving that pain because I had just done that yesterday. I'd say probably one recent one where I did get more emotional was I do record monthly bonus episodes I release on Patreon. I'm going to do a shameless plug. If you're interested
you have
in
to do it. No, you have to.
Yeah.
Sometimes I listen to people do their plugs and I'm like, God damn it, they're so disciplined. I like, yeah, go, do.
Well, yeah, I try to make my Patreon very accessible, so you can join for as little as $1 a month. That gets people instant access to episodes, ad-free a day early, and then plus a monthly bonus episodes. If you sign up at $3 or $5, you get some like added goodies like a T-shirt, a shout out. Or if you just want to do the monthly bonus episodes, you could purchase them for $3 each.
See, I don't know about the purchase by each. We need to compare notes off when it's not the interview, because there's all these practices that you've really got down. You're very good at the business of it, it looks like.
Oh, thank you. It's been a lot of trial and error, but I had done the Patreon, but I wasn't putting anything on there. So I'm like, all right, I've got to start putting some content to like make it worth people's while. So the monthly bonus episodes typically were a little bit more off the cuff. Like I knew it was a topic I wanted to talk about, but I wouldn't necessarily prepare a script unless there was like a lot of like history research in there. And in November, following Trump being elected again, I did do a bonus episode called like WTF America, where I just kind of talked about my concerns and my feelings about it. And so I think there was a lot of anger and sadness in that one. And that one, like I said, was more off the cuff that I knew I wanted to talk about it, but I didn't have a script. So that's probably where I got more emotional. But a lot of my podcasts, the emotion part comes up when I'm doing the script. And then, like I said, this year, the format's been a lot more guest focused.
Yeah.
So really, it's kind of just been connecting with them and learning the work they're doing. So it hasn't been as, I don't say as personal because like everything intersects still, but it hasn't been as personal and where it's like, this is my story that I'm telling. And like, isn't this like pulling up all these like deep feelings of, you know, shame or embarrassment I felt when I was younger. Yeah.
A lot of times guys my age or older will talk about how young people might not know or be curious about, you know, what happened, what came before gay history, what it was like during the AIDS crisis and things like that. You seem to be very curious about all things related to gay culture and probably other things as well. But you do have a real interest in that, it sounds like.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's because, so I'm 32. I came out at 21, which was towards the end of the Obama administration. So within less than a year of coming out, same-sex marriage was legalized. And at the same time, that's when you hear Donald Trump running for president. And so I think because of that, I really saw how fragile our rights were.
Yeah.
And still are. And it did make me realize, like, you know, I've gone out and had drinks with friends before, but I'm really not into the party scene. Like, I've had my moments, don't get me wrong, but like, that's not my thing. And so especially as Trump rose to power in 2016, seeing people going out and living a life like that, to me, I'm like, I realize now as I'm older, like, it's important to have those moments of queer joy. Sure. So whatever that means to you, whether it means getting wasted or going out in nature, whatever. But at that time, I had such fear over what his election meant, especially with same-sex marriage just being legalized, that I realized, like, we can't just, you know, people think same-sex marriage legalized, we're all equal, everything's fine. We're not. There's still so many inequalities, and these things are up for grabs still. And it almost felt like a slap in the face to, like, our queer forefathers and foremothers and foredays who really trailblazed, you know, the AIDS pandemic, Stonewall riots, even before that, like Frank Kameny and that movement. And so many of us don't realize that. And I felt that we got a little complacent. So that's why I think it's so important to remember our history, especially some of those untold stories, especially in the current administration where we are literally seeing LGBTQ plus history being erased, to really kind of pay homage to that. And then also to remind ourselves that, like, we have to keep pushing because we have not achieved equality, and we can see just how quickly these things can kind of, you know, boomerang backwards.
Yeah. I've gone through this sort of cycle, I guess, in my life where at first, you know, that you're coming out and it's a big deal and all of that. And then there's this point, I guess, I don't know if it had to do with where the culture was or where I was in my age, where it was like, it's not a big deal. I just happen to be gay. And the older I get, I'm like, no, it affects everything. And like listening to your coming out story, I was saying this to a friend the other day, or maybe I said it on the podcast. I don't know. When we're coming out, the gay person's biggest, his hopes are, or his or her hopes are, that they'll either break even or they're either going to break even emotionally or in terms of the situation with the relationship, or they're going to lose. There's no win. And I was like, that's bullshit. Like, nobody says, oh, good. Like, it's never good news that somebody's gay. And it should be. Like, it should be fine. It should be, and instead of just being like, well, I love you anyway. Like, it's either going to be okay and neutral-ish or bad.
Yeah.
Like, and how does that affect somebody's life in every aspect of their life? I don't know. In other words, for a while it was like, oh, we just happen to be gay. It's not a big deal. And now I feel like it is, and it affects everything. And I see connections in the way I've approached my life and friends and all of that stuff. So I think it's awesome that you're so interested in all of these parts of what it means to be gay. You talk about psychology. You talk about pop music. By the way, your receipts at Kylie were so much better than mine. From your posts, I got to see parts of the show. I'm like, oh, I didn't even know that was happening. I didn't know those dancers were even back there for that thing. So yeah, we shared the Kylie gene.
Oh yeah.
It sounds like you had an amazing experience at the show because you were right there when she came out on the little stage.
I did, and I definitely splurged on it, which is why I had those seats, because I hadn't been to a concert since I think like 2021. And before that, before COVID, I used to go to concerts a lot. But Kylie was somebody who I got really interested in like 2018. Like, of course, growing up, I knew Can't Get You Out of My Head because I was everywhere.
Right.
And then when I worked in high school at Aeropostale in the mall, that was the time that Get Out of My Way came out.
It's so cool that you worked there. It's so cool that you worked there, by the way. That was like that would have been like me working at Miller's Outpost. Anyway, go ahead.
We'll see. I wanted Hollister, but I don't think I was a very nerdy high schooler, so I don't think I had the look they were looking for at that time.
Hollister is cooler people work at Hollister than Aeropostale. Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it was like, if I remember correctly, at our mall, it was like Hollister was the top choice, followed by American Eagle, then Aeropostale. But just working in retail was like really exciting. Like, oh my God, I made it. They picked me for retail.
Right.
But I
bet you could fold the fuck out of a t-shirt.
I'm terrible because they want me to do like those like 3 folds, like the fancy one with the boards. Like there's no crease in the middle.
Yeah.
I hate folding laundry, and I still to this day just like fold in half. So there's always like lines in the middle of my shirt. I have to iron them, but I just don't have the patience to fold nicely. All
right. So talking about Kylie and talking about there.
So it was 2011. That's around the time that Get Out of My Way came out, and I liked the song.
It's a banger.
Yeah, and then I think it was that year or the year after is when I like downloaded it from iTunes because it was before I really got into streaming.
Right.
But I saw the name Kylie Minogue. I'm like, wait, I'm pretty sure that's the same name of Can't Get You Out of My Head. I'm like, oh, how interesting. She had these 2 songs all these years apart. And then I was, reading a book about like Straight Jacket. It's about, it's kind of like a gay psychology.
Yeah, I know the author.
Pop culture book.
He was a British guy, and I know him. Yeah. He was one of my editors at The Face when I wrote for The Face, and I'm blanking on his name, and I have the book. Matthew Todd. Yes.
Yeah. And so he did a whole section, which I actually did an episode on, about why we have a queer emotional appeal to pop queens, and usually they fall in 4 distinct categories. But because he's British, he references Kylie a lot. And I'm like, why is Kylie considered like a gay icon? Because obviously I know Britney, Cher, Madonna, Janet, but like Kylie, there's these 2 songs. And so around that time when I read that book, I'm like, I should look into her a little bit more. In 2018, 2019, I got really into her discography. I thought her career trajectory was so interesting with the reinventions and how at 30, they basically thought she was over and going into retirement. And then she came back bigger than ever for global success. But also, I realized that she's in Australia and she doesn't tour really in the United States. I think actually up until this past tour this spring, I don't think she had done a full-on tour in North America since 2011. She'd done a few like shows like at like World Pride in New York and things like that, but not actually a full-on tour. So then she had that like that little tension. What was it? The tension show in Vegas, yeah.
Oh, I wanted to go to that.
Yeah, that was a little too out of the way for me. It was a little too pricey to fly out there and all those things. So when I saw she went on tour, I'm like, I don't care how much it is, I'm going. Like, I need this. My soul needs this.
Right. Her stuff makes you feel so happy. And I love Madonna as well. I'm a huge Madonna fan. And Madonna songs are about things. Kylie's are just like dancing and love and hearts and like, like relationship stuff. But man, she's just, it's just like banger after banger after banger. And there's a joy in her that I think is really cool.
Yeah.
I saw her at Gay Pride in LA like 2 years ago. It was not that long ago. And it was just like champagne. It was just like her pop songs are just like, I don't know. They're just like,
there's like a sophistication to them.
Yes. Yes, I love her. So all about that.
I had an amazing Kylie moment yesterday. I was having some friends over, so I had to run out to the grocery store because I forgot a block of cheese for my charcuterie tray. So I'm running to the grocery store.
Speaking of gay crises, yeah. Okay.
Right? Yeah, exactly. I mean, the audacity. If you're having gays over, you need to have a good like little snack board out.
Yeah.
But so I'm running to the local shop right in South Philly, you know, nothing fancy. And I walk in, and as I'm going to like the dairy section, I hear a song and I recognize it. They're playing Spinning Around by Kylie Minogue, which I thought was really interesting because that song was never released in the United States. I mean, this is back, for all the kids listening, this was back in 2000 when like music was physically released. You couldn't just go online and stream things. And when I heard that, I'm like, that's interesting they're playing this. So I Googled to see like, was Spinning Around ever released in the United States? And it wasn't, and neither was the album Light Years. It wasn't until 2001, with the success of Can't Get You Out of My Head, that they actually put that album on the iTunes, or on the US iTunes library. So it was like never sent to radio stations, never had any airplay in the United States, but here it is being played in ShopRite. And I'm like, guys, everything's going to be okay. Kylie's She's telling me we're going to be okay. We're spinning around.
I have this feeling right now in the culture that I feel like the ladies of pop are like meeting the moment in terms of what we need, in terms of escape, inclusion. Sometimes there's big messages and sometimes it's just let's be together in a way that the guys aren't. Or maybe I'm listening to different things, but what is the male equivalent of Taylor or Beyonce or these moments that are bringing people together? I feel like the ladies are meeting the moment.
Yeah, well, and it's interesting too because I feel like our pop culture is kind of mirroring the political times where it seems like the chart toppers are a lot more straight men and some problematic straight men like Morgan Wallen.
Yeah.
But like you said, the pop ladies, they're, even though they may not be as commercially successful in terms of like the charts, they're making bigger splashes than these boring straight men. Cause I mean, like Chappell Roan has been making huge waves. She hasn't had a single #1 though, but she's doing just fine. And like, it's making more of an impact. And Renee Rapp, she hasn't really charted high at all with any of her songs, but like these are the names and the performances that we're talking about.
She's saying something. She's speaking to the moment. Yeah.
Like, and then while you might have the Morgan Wallens and the Ed Sheerans making their #1s, they're not, you know, I don't know if they're not resonating, but they're definitely not having the same impact that like, you know, the pop girlies are, especially like the sapphic pop girlies.
Yeah, no, for sure. And like Justin Timberlake had his tour and that was like, he wasn't really in the moment. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I'm grateful for our pop ladies is my point. You do a lot of research before you do a thing. Like the workflow must be a lot. So you spend a lot of time writing and compiling the research for what you're going to talk about, right? Talk about that process.
Yeah. You know, I think that kind of was just something I've been interested in. Back in college, I was one of those people that would like love to fall down like Wikipedia wormholes. So just like reading an article about something and then clicking a link and going into a new Wikipedia article and reading all about that. And I've always been, especially in the realm of pop culture, interested in like discographies, like seeing like how things charted, like where were they released, all that. So yeah, when I do an episode, you know, there are episodes that I have topics in mind for, and I start, you know, Googling, looking for it, and I can't really find any research. So then sometimes I do scrap those because I always try to clarify too if an episode is more factual based or if it is my personal opinion, because I do want to be fair. I know a lot of political commentators these days don't do that necessarily. They just assume their opinion's fact. But I do try to really be mindful of the two and say where I'm saying things from. But yeah, sometimes I'll just like, you know, for example, I keep going back to the mustache example. I'm just like, why are mustaches considered gay? And that one was a little bit more of a deeper dive, and you're not going to get as hard hitting of like New York Times or, you know, scientific studies. But there were some, you know, like style blogs and style like articles, ties back to the Castro clone look.
Right. The San Francisco thing. Yeah.
Yeah. And as you do the research on it, it's interesting. As you do research on one topic, you kind of uncover another. And I'm at the point now where I'm about like 150, 160 episodes in. So these things are starting to intersect. Like the mustache episode and then the Castro clone episode, I didn't even realize the connections between the two of them. And they came out around the same time, but it was really interesting doing that. Cause I'm like, oh, it's really interesting how these relate to each other. And I'd done another one on gay gym culture, which also kind of ties back to, you know, Castro clone era, so you start seeing these parallels throughout queer history as you're doing the research, and you're like, oh wait, this is saying this about this time in history. I remember this thing happened, and it's interesting how these two kind of came to be at the same time, or how one was a cause and effect. But there are a lot of great resources out there. Psychology Today, Healthline for some of the more like mental health based ones. I love, like Them, The Advocate, the Gay Times. They all have great articles too. So some of the more niche things, I'm having kind of more specific sources for it, whereas other ones you can find like pretty broad. And then when I have a more broad topic, I try to find like the general information about it and then try to find the gay angle on it. Okay, so maybe we're talking about this is what love bombing is as a whole.
Right.
Everyone can be love bombed. Why might it happen more so specifically to gay men, and what does that look like? Yeah. So while it might be a kind of general topic for gay or straight, I do always try to have the gay lens in it, because at the end of the day, things are different for gay people than it is for straight people.
Yeah. You did an episode about The Velvet Rage, the book The Velvet Rage, and I remember reading that book, and not long after getting to meet the author and getting to know him a little bit, and it's just interesting that you brought that up, and it was interesting to listen to that. I think it's a topic that still resonates, and I think he was working on a follow-up or something like that, but yeah, I remember when that was the book that all the gays were passing around,
Yeah. That's the book that started it all for me. I read it in 2017, and I was dating a guy who was very much in the scene, who I felt anxious around. And as I'm reading it, I'm seeing things that I myself had felt, but I'd never seen words put to. And then I'm also seeing certain dynamics that I'm seeing this guy I was seeing at the time playing out. And it really just opened the world for me about like, what does it mean to be gay? And not on the basis of like, oh yeah, I like the D, but like what does it mean for me as a person, for identity, for mental health, all these things, politically, from like a social standpoint too. And Dr. Alan Downs, I'm putting this out in the universe. I would love to have him on for an episode. I did The Velvet Rage this past year, but I'd love to have him on to do more of an interview, because I know he does a lot of work. I think it's called like the Velvet Rage Collaborative or something.
Right.
He does a lot of work with gay men too, and I'd love to have the opportunity. That'd be like one of my like meeting my hero moments.
Well, I might have a connection there, so we'll see.
Ooh.
We can do that. I think he's in Palm Springs now. He was in LA for a while, but I think he's in Palm Springs now. When you did your coming out story, you talked about religion, and I was raised Mormon, and that was not super devout, but that was a factor. So whenever I hear about religion things, I think about that. What was your religion specifically?
Roman Catholic.
Roman Catholic. So
that's the guilt-focused one.
For sure. Yeah, I have friends that were raised Catholic, and boy, is that, there's a lot of shame and guilt and sin and good and bad. And yeah, it's a thing. But you wrote a letter to your parents to come out. I did an email, or I think it was an email, or no, it was a letter. It was printed out. I printed it out. And I was 33, and I had a book coming out, a novel, and it was gay. And so I was like, I got to do this. Like there's no more time to wait. And so I did. My father had passed away, but I wrote it to my mother, and I think I wrote it to my sisters too. And it was okay once it played out, but we never really talked about it. But I remember being angry that here I was having this great moment in terms of a professional milestone, and at the same time I might, ruin my relationship with my family. Like that, those things come together. And I was like, that's bullshit. It felt unfair that there was that risk. It ended up playing out fine, but I do remember writing that letter. And you talk about writing one to yourself, and then the way the reaction was, and you weren't available for a phone call. You should listen to his story. It's a whole thing. But
yeah, it was, just to give a little teaser there, it was I think coming out is just very awkward in general, but wrote my parents that letter, sent it to them via email. Part of the inspiration behind it was I was seeing somebody who I was really into, but we had gone out on like 2 or 3 dates, and in my mind, I'm like, that means he's my boyfriend. First time I ever really dated or anything.
Right.
And in my mind, I'm like, oh yeah, my parents will accept me. And then like, I didn't hear anything from them all day long. And I'm like, great, we're Spears Unlocked. They want nothing to do with me.
Right.
So I had a date also planned that night, which I don't recommend coming out to your parents the day that you have a date planned. We went to a haunted house. I had to turn my phone in. And then I guess during the time while I was in the haunted house is when my family read that letter, and I came out to like 1,000 missed calls, text messages, an email from my dad. My apartment complex was calling me because they were trying to get in touch with me because my mom had called them. And then like the whole time I'm holding this guy's hand and he sees all these things coming. He's like, is everything okay? I'm like, oh yeah, it's fine.
So he didn't know what was going on. He didn't know that you would come out that day to your parents, and that's what all the texting was about.
No, he was not out either at that time, honestly. And he was somebody who was like a little too cool for school. So I was like a little intimidated by him, and I wanted to like play it off as, oh, everything's fine. I'm so cool and chill, even though I'm not that kind of girl.
Yeah. What part of podcasting do you love, and what part are you like, ugh, I don't like this part? I'll tell you what I don't like. I don't like writing the synopsises. And even though they're not that long, but I'm a writer and I'm like, oh, fuck, writing.
Yeah.
But it's fine. I get so much pleasure from the doing of it all and the conversations, and I really do. But that's the part where I'm like, oh, I wish I could push a button, and maybe I could, but I don't know. I don't trust AI with that stuff. But what part do you like, and what part do you like? Not my favorite.
This might sound like a really kind of like not an answer. I pretty much like every part of it, with the exception of it, like, I feel it ebbs and flows. Like there's times where I'm very much into, I'm like, yeah, here we go, typing up this script or interviewing this guest. Now I'm editing. Now I'm, posting it, and the transcript and the blog post, all those things. And then there's other times where like, if a lot of things are going on, I'm like, I just have no motivation to do any of this. And I feel like this script is terrible because I'm forcing myself to type things down, or I feel like with this guest interview, I don't sound like I have as much energy. So I don't think there's really a process of the podcasting part I don't like. I think it just depends on the timing and how much energy and motivation I'm feeling.
Sometimes you're all
but
about
I guess
it.
I guess actually though, probably maybe the transcript and blog post part.
Yeah.
I like having the final blog post. The transcript, I use a tool called Otter AI. So I'm like literally listening to the episode and watching the words come up to make sure it's correct. And that takes a little while because you have to listen through it all the way. Then you have to I'm very OCD. So I run it through Grammarly to make sure the formatting's as good as it can be. And then I have to format it to make sure I'm doing the timestamps right and the the chapter markers right, and that it's not too text heavy, and then make sure everything lines up, and then turn that into a blog post. So that could be a little tedious. But like I said, when I'm in the mood, it's just yeah, let's get this done. Let's podcast. And then other times I'm like, can I just lay on the couch and watch Real Housewives all day and be lazy?
There you go. Some people make entire careers out of Real Housewives, blogging, and it can be a whole side hustle. What have you heard from your listeners? How much feedback do you get? Are there things that you've heard that made you feel good? Okay, this is connecting.
Yeah. So I don't hear a lot from people. And I kind of always hoped I would, because
I don't hear a lot from people either. I don't.
Yeah.
That's the truth. I mean, once in a while you'll get an email and something and you're like, oh yes. And it means a lot, but you don't hear a ton. I don't.
Yeah. I don't hear too much, and it's tough because I would like to hear a little bit more for the purpose of an episode. I always wanted to do a Q&A one, and not even just not ask me questions about myself, but what questions do you have about gay culture or gay dating or anything like that, or just feedback on episodes or some guidance on what they might want to listen to. But that being said, I do have a few listeners who are pretty active. So while I don't hear back from a lot of people, there are some who every time I post something and I see come through, I know it's them because they're tuned in, they're commenting on the Patreon posts. There's one guy who, I've been in contact with. He actually was traveling through Philly, so we got to have dinner one night. And we were talking about the podcast and his work and everything. So it's nice because I feel that the people reach out. It means a lot to them, the episodes. And I'm glad to hear that, because I'm interested in the podcast for myself because I'm learning things too, but I want to create a conversation resources that other people can also appreciate. Because I feel when I was younger, especially when first came out, I was trying to look for something like that but couldn't find it. So really trying to build more of a community and a platform for like-minded queer people. So I don't hear back from a lot of people. The people I do hear back from, it seems like it really is a part of their day that they enjoy. So I'm really happy to hear that. Yeah,
I relate to that a lot. It's not about volume. It's about passion and appreciation. So
yeah,
I like that. What do your friends and family think about your podcasting? Are they oh, that's cool, or do they listen?
You know what? I read this online, and it's true. It's don't expect your friends and family to be the ones to listen to your podcast, because you would think oh, built-in support system, great. I'll at least get 5 downloads this episode. When I started, they listened to it. to their credit, my family is not really podcast people. My sister a little bit, but she listens more so to like Call Her Daddy. So that's like her main podcast.
Right.
But so they're not really podcast people in the first place. So it's not like they're purposely ignoring mine. But yeah, I think some feedback I got from my mom was some of it actually is tough for her to listen to.
That's interesting.
Just about and not even things about like anything family wise, but I think just some of the inequalities like is tough for her to hear because it's like you want your kids to be happy, but like you can't shield your kids from everything. And also this is something I've tried to explain to them, like for queer people, it's a unique minority group where you don't share your minority status with your family necessarily. Like somebody from, you know, a certain race or like a person of color, like typically, not always the case, but typically you will share that status with a family member.
Right.
For queer people, you don't really have that as much. Not that it can't happen, but it's not as common. So it does really create a different sense of isolation there. So I was hoping my family would listen a little bit more so they could kind of maybe understand things. And I think, like I said, for my mom, it's tough to see that because it's something that's so foreign to her. But then, like, you know, my sister Michelle, like I shared with her the Share episode because, like, she, despite her not really being in touch with pop culture, like, I mean, I remember in 2016 she was like, no one listens to Ariana Grande anymore when like that was such a major time for Ariana Grande.
Right.
But for some reason she's like obsessed with Cher, which I mean, I don't mean to say for some reason Cher you should be obsessed with, but it's just interesting that like she's turning her back on today's pop girlies, but like lives for Cher of any era. So certain ones I'll share specifically with my family if I think it's something they'll enjoy. But my gay friends tend to listen to the podcast a little bit more. But I feel like a lot of the listenership is actually people that I didn't know until I started doing the podcast, which I think is good too, because it's good to have your built-in support system, but you of course want to reach other audiences too, because that's how you grow and learn.
Yeah. I started a Patreon this year and a Substack. It's the same content. It's called Dennis Hensley's Happy and Gay. And I talk about happiness and things that I've learned around the science of it and stuff, in addition to like pop culture and stuff that I normally feature on the show. But it's kind of new and it's kind of building and stuff like that. And today I got noticed that I got a new subscriber and it wasn't somebody that I knew. And I was just like, oh my gosh. Yeah. Like you don't get a ton of feedback and stuff. And that has to be okay. You know, I've done mine for 10 years. And sometimes I think, gosh, I should be so much further along. I should have been so much more successful. Why don't, blah, blah, blah. And then I just thought, you know what? It's been so meaningful to me every step of the way. What is something that's come out of it for you that might not have been an obvious benefit when you started? Like, is there any opportunities or anything that was like, oh, that happened because of the podcast? Because I get to see a lot of plays and shows, and I interview people that I'm interested in and like, and stuff like that. And that's been really cool. I like that a lot.
Yeah, I think for me is connecting with other queer creators that I might not normally have discovered on my own.
Right.
There's a few people like Ralph Anthony, who hosts the Scream Society, which it started off as a Scream Queer podcast and was rebranded. But he actually had been listening to my podcast and found me, and then like connected with me on Instagram. And then I saw his podcast, and I love horror. So we've had some really fun collaborations. He came on my podcast a couple years ago. I was on his, and then he's even lent a hand. He's great with storytelling and like audio editing. So every episode of his is like listening to like a mini horror movie in your ears. So I did like a bonus episode last year where I read a chapter from one of my like books that's like an LGBTQ plus thriller Halloween book. And he actually did the editing for that to add like sound effects in. So there's been some great collaborations.
That's
like that.
Very cool. So it's a book that you wrote.
Yeah.
Is it available? Are your books available for people?
They are. Yeah. So I have two books. The first is called A Family Affair. And if you read that, I'm sorry, because I'm a little bit embarrassed. It's not my best one. But then the other one's called Eleftheria, which is available on Amazon. And that's like a dark LGBTQ plus thriller. All my books, I try to have like a gay character, some kind of queer representation there.
Right. Very cool. Look at you going. What do you do for your main work? Do you have other work that you do? Because I'm spinning all these different plates, and, it's a lot.
Yeah, I have a tendency to bite off more than I can chew. So I do work full-time in corporate. And then I also am in grad school for my MBA. And then I own my home, so I'm always trying to do some kind of house project and then trying to podcast and write and also not just be totally burnt out all the time. So I sometimes spread myself a little thin.
That's impressive. What are you studying in grad school? Is that business, MBA?
Yeah, it's a master's of business administration.
Okay, yeah.
And then I'm doing my concentrations in strategic management and marketing.
Having the corporate thing and then the podcast thing, do they feel like two different hats? Do they overlap at all? Or does this feed you in a way that maybe that other doesn't? Or how do they relate to each other in your life?
Yeah, I do feel like I have kind of multiple identities sometimes. And I guess that could be because I'm a Gemini as well. But I've always been very corporate, like button up for work. I've been working in corporate since I was 21. So that's always what I knew. And I like the problem solving that goes on there to a degree. Sometimes it's just chaos, but I've always enjoyed that work, and communications, I think, allows you to be a little creative in the workplace, or at least as creative as you can be in corporate. Mm-hmm. So I've always enjoyed that, but the writing and podcasting really tap into a more specific creative outlet for me. Writing especially, but I think, corporate has a tendency of being very whitewashed, heteronormative. So I do feel sometimes I act like confined to that. Like I'm not open about my sexuality at work necessarily. There's not really a reason to either, because like I'm single. So it's not like I'm hiding that, I spent the weekend with my boyfriend, or I'm going on a honeymoon. Like those things aren't happening. There's also not a lot of like LGBTQ plus resources at my company. So it's not like I'm leading the charge for our, queer ERG or anything like that. So if somebody asked, I wouldn't shy away from it, but I'm also not as open about that. So podcasting really allows me to kind of tap into the gay identity a little bit more and explore kind of my roots. I guess some people who are heteronormative might like explore their roots through like their family tree and where they come from and where these things mean. For me, my roots are through queer history that was not taught to us, and kind of seeing how we have this pendulum of politics going back and forth where societal acceptance can just like be very fickle sometimes.
Wow. I never thought it could swing back this far. I'm a little bit stunned. And I never took things for granted, but it is a little bit stunning, like where we are. But what keeps you going? What gives you hope? I'm looking for tips.
This is going to sound really bad. This week has been one of those weeks where I've been struggling with the optimism here. Part of it is I've been planning out some episodes for January to kind of get ahead of things.
Right.
And so one episode I'm doing is a recap of all the attacks against the LGBTQ plus community committed by the Trump administration in 2025. So I tracked.
It's going to be a 7-parter. Is it going to be a 7-part episode?
Well, no, a 4-parter. I did one last year about just a queer review of the whole Trump administration from 2017 to 2021.
Right.
I'm planning on doing that again, assuming we ever get past this administration. But I figured there's a lot of things happening right now, so it's important to be mindful of those. But so because I just finished putting together that script of everything that's happened up to September as of now, I'm feeling a little jaded. In terms of hope, though, I guess one of the things for me is like, I just cannot have this be it. Like I can't, I always think to myself, like I can't like die tomorrow and be like, oh, that was my life, because I would not be happy. I feel like there's so much more I want to do and want to accomplish and want to see and want out of life. So like I guess my motivation to keep me going is like, this can't be it. Like this just cannot be it. Like there has to be something, something better. Yeah.
Well, you give me hope, because I feel like you're very impressive. You work really hard. When you listen to your podcast, you're like, I like what you're about, and you're empowering and thoughtful and fun. And so I think it's really cool what you do. If I lose, I want to lose to you. No, I actually don't even, I forgot that it was even a thing. So this is like the coolest thing that's come out of it. And anyway, tell people how they can listen to your podcast and find your stuff and anything else you want to promote.
Absolutely. So I like to tell everyone, if you have any questions about either myself or episodes or topic suggestions, you can reach out to me, rob@ajadedgay.com. I have the website, ajadedgay.com. There's episodes there, links to merchandise, blog posts, episode resources, guest information. You can pretty much stream the podcast anywhere you listen to podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, all the things, A Jaded Gay. I'm on Instagram, TikTok, SoundCloud, and YouTube at A Jaded Gay Pod. Personally, if you want to connect with me, I'm on Instagram at Rob_Loveless. I have the Patreon and Buy Me a Coffee. Both of those are at A Jaded Gay Pod too. And I think that's it. Yeah.
Well, you've got all the bases covered. Like, I'm not that active on TikTok. Like, all these things I feel like I should be doing. Like, I admire your website is great. Like, it's all going on. So you should be very proud of what you accomplished. Are you proud of that you've kind of done this, that you're doing it?
I try to take a step back so I could be proud, because I think it's very easy. And this isn't just with podcasting. This is me in life. I think it's easy for me to look at, but what's the next thing I need to get done? And then I don't realize everything I have done.
Yeah.
My therapist scolds me for that, so I'm working on it. But so I do try to take a step back and be like, wow, like, my one friend said to me, he's like, but you actually did it. Like, everybody says they're going to start something, they're going to do something, but you actually did it. So even though you might think, oh, I only have this many listens, you started the podcast and you're getting listens. And for me, a kind of surreal moment is, I look at my stats, and my first episode...
You're a braver man than I am. I can't bear it. It's too much of a bummer sometimes, but good for you. It's important. I should face it. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, it's a slippery slope, but I checked it out, and my first episode, which came out in April 2022, is just one download shy of hitting 1,000 downloads. So to me, that's pretty surreal, because you think like, yeah, of course, there's all these huge podcasts that are getting, millions of downloads a day. But for me, who started recording in my closet in 2022, in a little indie podcast, not knowing where it's going, that 1,000 people have listened to that one episode. That's actually kind of a big number if you think about it. It's
fantastic. I love it. Here's my final question. Why do you love it?
Just love how I really am hoping it's creating a conversation. That's why I love it. Like I said, when I was younger, it's very easy to find the gay parties and the gay scene and the hookups and all those things. And that, of course, can be fun. But I feel that this is creating conversation that's deeper, which is something I've always been looking for. And so one thing I hope is that, as hopefully generations become more accepting and LGBTQ plus youth can be more authentic to themselves at a younger age instead of hiding in the closet for so long, that for those people who may be struggling, that this could be a resource where they can realize, oh, I'm not alone, or, oh, here's history I didn't realize, or here's people like me who want similar things out of life. Because I think for a lot of us, through different parts of our queer identity, it's very easy to feel isolated and alone, and trying to find those people who either look like you or sound like you or think like you. So yeah, hopefully trying to just create a conversation around that where people can feel that they see themselves or can connect with somebody. And I don't even just mean through my own voice. I mean through the guests I bring on or the resources putting out there, or the recommendations of like, here's some ways we could be kinder to ourselves, or here's, a petition we can sign to push back against anti-LGBTQ plus legislation. Just learning from the past so that we don't repeat the same mistakes.
Yeah, I relate to that a lot. For me, it's about connection, like connecting to the guests, connecting to people. I like the way it feels,
Yeah.
So this has been a real pleasure. Thank you for doing this. And I'll see you at the non-existent award ceremony. Are you going to watch? Does it happen live? What happens? I don't know. Did you watch last time?
I did. I put it on briefly because I had night class that night. So I watched right afterwards to see me lose. But I think it's actually a week from today. I think it's Sunday night. And you do go to the website and you can stream it live. So yeah.
There it is. All right. I like it. All right. This is a pleasure. Thank you so much, Rob.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Dennis. This was great.
I'm glad you enjoyed it. All right. Bye. Thanks again to Rob Loveless. Check out his podcast, A Jaded Gay, wherever you get your podcasts. All right. So this happened. I mentioned in the past on one of these episodes, or multiple episodes, that I'm putting out a new party game this year. It's called Search Party. I'm partnering with my friend Jeb Havens, who worked with me on You Don't Know My Life. And we're in the process now of getting the cards printed and the games printed and manufactured. And we've been taking pre-orders from people. And thank you to everyone that's pre-ordered. We still have quite a ways to go to be able to cover the printing, but we're going for it. We, as the year was unfolding and I had this game idea and I'd been developing it and graphic designing and all that stuff. And I'm like, do we really want to try to do this year? Everyone's freaked out. Things are so uncertain. And then I was like, you know what? I'll be damned if I'm going to put my dreams on hold for, this asshole in the White House. So we're going for it. So, so we're doing it, and we're in the process now of getting the proofs back from the printer. And we're going to, it's just cards that you have. There's no, dice or anything like that. It's just a cool deck of cards, that I canvaed the shit out of, by the way. And so we were going to do just a flat, like a card pack that folds open like like a deck of cards. But when we got the print back from the printer, it was a little underwhelming. Like, it was a little, I don't know, it didn't really feel special enough. So now we're going to do it as a box that opens, if that makes sense. So the difference between a folding carton or a box with a lid that comes off. So we're going to make that change because we think you people deserve to have it feel a little bit fancier. So if you want to support the game and pre-order your copy, I would love that. Go to youdon'tknowmylife.com/search party. The link is also in the bio on my Instagram account. So yeah, that's really fun. So I'm excited though. It's going to be real. We're going to be pushing it more and more, and it's a great gift for other people for the holidays. Yeah, it's been fun. I'm glad we're going for it. So there you go. That's enough for this week. I want to give a shout out to Oscar Rosario for mixing the episodes. My theme music is by Mark Daniels for Placement Music. We'll catch you next time on Dennis Anyone. Bye.